The forwarder is finally straighter than Rob.
We have just taken the shocks off of the rear of the forwarder for, you guessed it, working on the rear of the forwarder. Now with the shocks out of the way, these wheels are able to articulate. Really, it's not that hard. It's actually a lot of weight on there, and that's all the control arms, everything. But we can now shim that, get that up to ride height, and then we can make sure that when we go to finally mold these on, which is the whole point of this video, these will be flush with this and they'll look right with the tire, and the tire will be able to move up and in them properly. It starts with CAD, but then it finishes with practicality. Will it really work on the real car? And do we have room to take the tire off? Do we have room for the tire to tow in and out? Weight laterally, if the car's turning, you're gonna have weight pulling here. So we just got a lot of things to consider when it comes to putting proper rear fender vents and fender ducts and fender everythings on the back of the car. We're gonna need to get some serious metal and everything up.
Oh, there you go.
There. Only do it one take, that's it. I'm trying to run myself over with the car. Our goal is to get the lower control arm to a flat height. Well, that's actually perfect.
Nailed it.
So once I let go, it'll drop down that little bit. Let's make sure it's just the right height and stability so you can take the tire on and off without worrying about everything else.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see how that...
Looks like it needs to go up a little bit. Maybe we can put some sheet metal underneath.
Yeah, one thing of metal will flatten that out. Ooh, spot on. That is spot on. True flatness. Yeah, we're right in line. So we have two rear wheels and chassis all squared. Okay, let's see what the car at ride height looks like now.
There's more space than I expected.
Yeah, there's more space, which is good because there really is that much space for travel. This, as we can tell, is too close. The tire wobbles. We get some toe from all the torque, all that. It's gonna rip this area out. The distance looks fine. It really looks like the car's bottomed out when it's at ride height right there, and it's got 3 inches of travel, or should, all the way up into here.
I think it does. We tested it.
Yeah, we tested it. It kept going. God, that looks so low. If we put the front wheels on, you'll actually see now the front wheels don't look so recessed because remember when you see all the shots of the front, all the rears were just dangling. So now we're back to ride height. The car's sitting where it should be. We put a front wheel on, you're gonna see a car that looks slammed and yet can travel more than most cars. Now that we've got to see these better and on the car at the right spot, we'll try and keep the body line, at least the distance from the tire to the body, the same until this right here, which is really the center of the tire, and then we'll continue the vertical. I don't want it going back in, I want it just dropping off there. That'll make it easier to service the car, and this thing's gonna tow in under power, it's gonna wobble, the rubber moves, especially on 10 PSI, the rubber itself can expand and do wild shit, so it'll hit this if we don't clear it out. It's right where we want it to be, just tire's gonna ruin the party. The first moment I've seen this thing full like race.
Yeah.
Well, that gives me hope for the fender because look at these are pretty close.
Yeah. It pushes it out, or
this needs to miraculously come out further,
mm-hmm.
and you start pulling too far, and well, the hood can't keep going out, so then you have a gap. How radius should this hood be, or how radius should this fender be? I can make a decision based on both fenders now, not just what I see, because we're starting to get to the point where each piece is a piece of the whole. The whole expression about some of its parts, all that sort of crap. In this case now, it's not just a hood anymore. It's not just a front fender. We're building a car. A little wild way of doing this. It's based on budget and skills and all that. No other way to build it if you're not a multi-billion-dollar company that can afford to have teams working on it. So you guys get to see the very first moment of it with race tires on, all the wheels at the correct ride height. And so now we start to see, those small details. This one's clearly clearance to be able to party hard and have the tire hide up in here when we slam on the brakes and are on full turn. One hell of a design.
She's naked.
That is really weird. Well, there's my car again. We're in an era now where it's cool to revert the car away from wide body. That's what we're doing. We're just gonna have huge tires sticking out. What we figured out was, I knew the number, but it's like 9.5. It's almost 10. It's 10 10 inches. So it's 5 inches wider than a stock FD on both sides.
Jeez.
You're gonna say goodbye to this section?
Yeah, all this sheet
All
metal
that.
here.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm
All this.
basically just gonna try to leave like the door jamb area, and then right here where this is like more kind of frame stuff,
Yeah.
and then this part I'm probably gonna cut it. All this is part of the wheelhouse, the stock wheelhouse. So I'm probably just gonna cut this straight down, or that's what I wanted to do. But if you need that, then
I don't need that, but we'll have to make another one for the rear diffuser somewhere out there to hold up.
okay.
Because otherwise it's got little wings. And it's gonna...
Because ultimately I'm gonna be cutting it on this line.
Oh, yeah, so it's rid of a lot of...
Yeah.
We got a sawzall, you know.
We got 2 sawzalls.
Yeah, we have.
Could you imagine? That's some Rambo shit. Go ahead. All that stuff's all good to cut away. There she is, my baby. Just another hint of the Montego blue. This is gonna be less and less of the original car, and I like that. I'm okay with that. As we continue digging into this car, we're learning a lot about custom work. And so what you see here was the intention of making these side skirts what we thought would be the right height, and then the reality of it is that this is the right height down here. That's where my flat bottom ends, and because we didn't have this wide of a side skirt, the flat bottom was way further in, so it didn't give us a good point of reference. That is 4 inches off the ground at ride height. It is not 4 inches right now, but when the car is sitting down on the ground, it's exactly 4 inches. Guys, show your girlfriend this is 4 inches. So what we're gonna do is keep this indent, which is reminiscent and kind of pays homage to the stock car. We're gonna keep that at this height relative to the door. I love this band. It actually matches with the front band on the front carbon. And so we're gonna slice it somewhere where there's kind of a flatter side to here, and we're gonna bring this down to there. Unfortunate, but there was just a miscommunication when it was designed. It is confusing because look at, even the actual Rocket Bunny is too low. So you can actually see up here, that was what was confusing and throwing people off, was that the Rocket Bunny is actually 3 inches off the ground and it shouldn't be. Unfortunately, Rich has to kill a unicorn and do that, but that's going to make it much more cohesive, and the rear and the front will all match the 4 inches off the ground ride height. I just got fiberglass in my hand. That's so cool. Seeing it being more custom piece.
It's pretty solid.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you see on the backside? Like caramel, like syrup. Probably doesn't taste the same. Of course, he's gonna fill it in and do all the other stuff, but this is the structure to it. It's not gonna bend there. It's kind of like weld, where the weld itself is the strongest part. It's the part outside of it that's gonna crack. That's pretty impressive. That's the goal, is that you can see the curve that he's trying to complete down there, and that'll do that kind of twist under the car. This will all be filled in, looking pretty. You can do all the rest of the work that you want to do off the car now.
Yeah, basically just gonna finish this out with more fiberglass off the car, and then once that's done, I'll be able to trim it and get a nice edge, and then I can start actually fleshing it to the body. Thought it was gonna be a lot harder.
So did I actually knew it was going to be less hard just because when we had the front stuff done and they were like, in one day they rebuilt the whole front bumper. I was like, okay, that can be done. I don't know how, but it could be done. So they gave me hope. All asked for all that. Here comes an iconic moment for the future of the car. This will be a moment I'll be looking back on the videos for a long time, at least the raw footage, but we get to experience it together now. Rich is cutting off vinyl wrap.
How long has this been on here?
Since 2016. I wrapped it the night before SEMA. I did not expect it to last this long. He's taking everything back on this so that way he can start molding the fenders in, which for all of us, I'm blown away. This is my dream moment, but you got to take it back to build it forward. The wrap sounds brittle.
Yeah, it is.
We have a bit of an issue. The fenders don't fully fit, and that's a heartbreaker for everybody, but it's not a like actual heartbreaker. It's a let's figure out how we're going to solve this problem. Before we take any steps further, what I had to do is make sure we figure out where the problem is. Don't start modifying things. Let's look at the facts. And so we put the hood on from the corner of the hood to the center of the dash, and then did that same exact spot to the other corner. And we have confirmed that the hood is, as it visually looks, centered to the car, centered to the body of the car. Same thing with these headlights. These were jigged in after the very first shop, and they've still remained within, fraction of an inch, give or take, all centered. So the hood is centered to the body, but we ran into problems as soon as we put the fenders on. So let me show you a summary of what that means. We're going to take this as if this is our plumb bob, which plumb bob's a fancy way of saying a weight on a string. What we're doing is we're looking to make sure that this thing is level. Once we get in that level area, we're going to hold it against the hood and see where the bottom of this metal goes. So we'll just kind of put it there, with the bubble roughly there. Look at where we end up on this control arm, right at this line. It's an easy visual reference right there. By the way, I have the arms both at ride height, so that way it's not the wrong spot. We'll go ahead and do the same thing on this side. And this is where we notice the issue. So let's go ahead and get that bubble in the same spot. And then as you travel down, that is not close to the same spot. What you also will look for is for those closer sharp eye guys, the heim joints are basically the same distance apart. So essentially, we really are this much of a difference from left to right to the wheels. So this side is sunken in, what is that, 3/4 of an inch? And the other side isn't. So quick maths, the car needs to be shifted over, the body needs to be shifted over the half of that, because then that would make both sides even. So that means straight up that the hood, the windshield, what you would assume is the chassis, but it's really just the FD body planted on top of this, all needs to be shifted over 3/8 of an inch to make sure that the car, what you see and appreciate, is actually centered to what I think of the car, which is the core, the drivetrain. That includes the mounts for this. So back when the car was very first made, we were set up kind of to fail. And so even the headlights, they're squared to the car, they're not squared to the body. So the hood's fine. The hood is 100% fine. It's just that everything needs to be suggested over that way. What the telltale sign of that is, something that gives us all away, is something that bothered me for a while. Look at this tube right here. Look at that same tube on this side. They are not symmetrical, but yet if this front bumper was shifted over that 3/8 of an inch, they would be identical on both sides. Same thing with the way that the intercooler, when we built that back in 2019, we centered the intercooler to the chassis, to the actual drivetrain chassis, not the body. And so you can see all these little things that all have been bothering us and trying to figure it out, they all add up to answering what's going on. The whole chassis is capable of moving it. Like those earthquake simulators where the building wobbles, the whole top can move like this. The car is all welded at the very bottom. With a little bit of force, we can push the top side to side. So unfortunately, I saw that before the unicorn race, and what did I do? I welded this purposely, vertically, to solve all of that, and it worked perfectly, except I was mounting it to where the car felt it should be, not to where it actually should be. Cut a chunk out, and then allow me to push this part over and then re-bolt it, weld it back together, and square up the chassis for the final time. So both fenders will be the same widths, tires will poke the exact same ways, everything will be beautiful. Joel, how do you feel about that?
I
Cool.
feel pretty good.
Yes.
Yeah, see, Rich feels good, but Joel, tell us a human emotion that you don't have about what's a response that you would have to that.
Much excite.
Yeah, that's good. That's a start. That's a start. Yeah, that's so sick.
Now it's extended, nice and strong.
What's the next step?
So next is just going to be trimming this edge and kind of flattening it out on the edge so I can get this whole thing positioned correctly on the body. And then once I'm happy with that, retrace the new line because obviously the old line stopped short.
Yep.
And then I'll be able to actually start cutting the body and fleshing this out with it.
Awesome. This is more and more of the car gone, but that's the final cut for these fenders anyway. I love it because it's a lot less car, less metal, less everything, but it is hilarious seeing more and more of my car gone and more of my new car coming in. So this is a beautiful moment, but it's wild looking.
Actually lines up really well.
Straight off the cut. Straight off the root.
I guess we would have some problems if it didn't.
Someday this is gonna turn into a big time YouTube channel. Until then, I have to ask Joel to film for me. It is. Oh my God. You understand how much I've wanted this thing to look all one piece. The body kit or the bolt-on fenders or fender flares are a good looking style, but not for an FD. So this is the very first time we see the correct width and the correct overall shape. And that is such a moment. That is such a moment, because your guys' eyes are gonna, just like everybody else, is gonna be drawn to the yellow or the different colors or the the weirdness. You always get that way, but at the end of the day, look at what the structure is. Look at what it's actually doing. Art is subjective, so even I could be doing it wrong, but this is what I want. And we have such a surface here, and then boom, we have to go way out here, and people do it so, in my opinion, wrong. And so that's where this whole area has this nice kind of twist and curve, and it's not bulbous. I'm very, very, very happy with how this is looking. The guys are up and at it early today, and they're snotting all over the fender onto the over fender, which is no longer an over fender. It is the fender, and it looks amazing. They worked painstakingly. We all worked together, but it was them suggesting options on making sure that that tire could go up and bounce 2.5 inches into it. And so when you see it at ride height with the way he's got it set up, you think it's going to bottom out, but it doesn't. Right now, he's got the fender in place. It's going to hold a lot better than anything I've ever done. So you're not going to see this thing flapping around. It's pretty impressive.
was half expecting my body to like come.
No, I mean, it's supported in 3 different spots, so you cut one. So that's why I'm cutting this, because those 2 aren't going to move from where they're at right now. All I need to do is just push this one down. So what happened was, just like the front, the back is off, but not side to side. Side to side is fine because we did that last time. This side is up 1/4 inch, and Rich didn't know how to do math. And now it threw Rich's measurements off, and so the only thing that was different was this side. I had a 1/4 inch wheel gap more than that side. He's like, I don't know why, and so we measured it to the suspension, because you measure to the ground is fine, but you have to measure to suspension on this car, and I've been trying to tell these guys, the only thing absolute on this car is the suspension. So just measure everything to that, and then we did. So it's cut. It's gonna push it down 1/4 inch, weld it back in place, and then she'll be bitching in the rear. So even from it being cut, just as it's sitting, it's went down like slightly, but look at that. Look how much it moves. Just by barely putting any weight on it. I'm gonna somehow grab the welder and get it all the way over here, and then we're going to push it down. Alright, measuring now.
Yeah, it's right on the line.
It's perfect.
If you can get a tad more, then.
If I can get one more?
Yeah, it's
I
a
can
try.
get one more. It's gonna blow up in my face, but that's worth the sacrifice, I think.
Yeah. I don't know if maybe we can go from this hole.
No, that's gonna pull it down. That's super thin. Middle does what I want it to do.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Let me get don't release it yet. Let me
I gotta weld it first.
I'm gonna stress relieve it first a bit. Do you have I need a hammer real quick.
That is the max effort this ratchet shop will ever go through.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. But I honestly, this is worth the sacrifice of pulling all down, I think. I think I just hammer that back in. Yes, sir.
Sheesh.
I bring that measuring tape over here. I swear to God, if this thing moves, I'm gonna beat its ass. We're pretty much there?
Pretty much there.
Fuck yeah! Alright, hammer that bitch back in place. And with that, the four-wheeler is finally straighter than Rob.
Check this out. Rich just did this, and I want you guys to see it. No, you gotta come close. You gotta hear the excitement in my voice. This is sexual. I saw Rich from across the room, and I saw him messing with this area, but his hands were nowhere near here. I don't want to do it. I might break it, but I don't think I will. But watch this. Look at that. That is. It's all one thing. That is nasty. That's like every guy who buys like a little Bomax, real cheap shitty, like polyurethane or whatever front bumper, and it's all like twisted like this when you get it. This is like the dream, is that it's all like connected and solid like that. That's the thing of beauty. If that's all connected in this spot, we also have down here connected to the flat bottom. So that wind hitting here, I did a calculation forever ago, and like at 300 miles an hour, give or take, it's been a minute, it's like 200 pounds of force per square foot. So say at 300 miles an hour, you take a square foot of space this way, not this way. So you got about 200 pounds being forced at this vector straight on. That's 300 miles an hour, just to point out. So that's pretty impressive. That those are certainly not going anywhere.
It's hot boy now. Look at you.
That's right. The car's going insane when it's full tilt. You know?
That's a Wake Fest quality right there, bro.
I'll tell you what, I've never really given a shit about the backside of the car. Like, cool, it's just functional. We have tires 10 inches wider than the car. It's gonna just look like shit. Well, this is the first time where I'm looking at it and going, oh my God, it's a beautiful car from this angle too. And even with the tires just So if you look at it from here, you can just see the curve of it more. Instead of hardcore Rocket Bunny angles, there's still like an influence of it, but it's a curved car hugging these tires inside of the vehicle. And like you can kind of see where some cool ideas for like the final diffuser, the rear diffuser, could really also diffuse that turbulent air from the tires. You get this real cool organic shape that's probably going to come out of that as well. With this car, everything intermingles, everything connects, or it requires something else to be done. It's building a car from scratch. So what we're doing right now, we need to begin the top half of the firewall. It's gonna be from that straight bar across up to the windshield, essentially. That part can't be done until we fix the fact that the chassis and the body are slightly off, about 3/8 of an inch off. So Isaiah's working on the new braces that'll be used. Cutting this off allows us to shift that over, that 3/8 of an inch. As we saw earlier, the windshield, the headlights, the front bumper are all squared to each other. They were put on the body from the very first shop, 3/8 of an inch over to the driver's side. Then that allows us to make this top half of the firewall. Yes, you're seeing Rob Dahm say, putting a firewall into this car. It's not that I want to have a firewall in there, it's just that I want to have a place to mount all my stuff, and I've got a lot more stuff now. We're about to make that cut, and we're finding points that where we know absolutes. That way we can move it over 3/8 of an inch. And what's unfortunate, being real with all of you, is that I think the whole thing, because remember, if we push the top over, it's parallelogram, it'll go over like this, right? Well, if you push the top over, that means that the side parts will be on an angle. Well, that's the sad part, is that they are currently almost, at least this arbitrary piece right here, is almost 100% level. So that means that when they built that front, they somehow shifted the whole front. So we're gonna fix the top, and the bottom one we can fix a little bit in the future. But see, this is all welded to the chassis here, so we can't fix it that easily. But knowing this, it will get us 90% of the way there, if almost 100% of the way once we have the rest of the body carbon fiber. What I'm verifying is it's not just the final position of the wheel, but it's also making sure that the control arms, specifically the upper ones, they have a pivot point. The pivot point's just as important as the outer point too. Not just where we put the wheel, but where this is. And so I want to make sure that the tire is at the average of those two. Or the fender is at the average of those two. And they're close, but the control arms on both sides of this car are slightly, we're talking a 1/16 of an inch difference from just how whatever Tanner did to, he wouldn't know, but he got the car squared, but that does mean that the suspension is slightly different on each side, 1/16 of an inch. I just want to make sure I take that into account and say, okay, all the suspension, the body is 100% squared of the suspension. My poor piece is all cut, but what's funny is it's still bracing this whole thing, and yet watch what Isaiah does. Even with me bracing it extra, it's kind of creating an L shape or a U shape. Even as the moment that he cut it away from the tube, that's how sloppy that was.
It wasn't sloppy, okay? It's hard to do good work on top of bad work. Don't ever say sloppy. That's my ex, okay?
Even with my piece completely welded, not even stitch welded, I welded all the way down that because I wanted to create like a brace. It's insane how even with all of that, you can still topple this house over. We're gonna see if that's enough. It's still so sloppy and loose that he might be able to just push it that much and accomplish what we need. If not, we might have to cut more of the piece that I spent so long making.
Do you know what a 3/8 is in a fraction?
Yeah, 3/8.
I'm sorry. In the decimal, sorry.
The easy move is 3/16, so half of the distance we need. That's like, you're doing that without even trying. So a 1/4 inch is my minimum, so it'd be a little bit of extra bracing. But I see it hit,
Okay.
I think a 1/4 inch is our
We
best.
could have it hit and then it'll spring back a little bit because we sprung back a 1/16 over here
Okay.
when we welded this.
Yeah, so we
So I
can,
figured it'd probably be about the same.
yeah. We got 0.2 inches, so less than a 1/4 of an inch, but that makes a massive difference in the inequity between the two, because on the fenders, moving 0.2 inches actually moves 0.4 inches of total width. You know, that one fender's now less and more, and so they're much closer to the middle. So it really is kind of at that point starts getting to diminishing returns. I think we'll move it over 0.2 inches. We don't want the windshield being under too much stress because the rest of the body's doing weird things, and I don't want anything else looking weird. So I think we're gonna lock it in there, shift everything else over that little bit so that everything's still square, but just over, and I think we're good.
We are over into acceptable range. I'm gonna do what I do best is just melt these two pieces of metal together. Hopefully things go our way for the rest of the day. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Be careful. Oh, it barely moved.
As vertical as possible. Yeah, they're pretty close. I mean, it seems way more centered than it was before, even with that rough measurement.
Do you think it's gonna go places?
I do feel like that's not going anywhere until we hit a bump and the windshield shatters from all the extra stress.
Have we showed them this actually? On a more important
I
note?
don't think so.
Isaiah made the shop a better place with this.
I actually have all my reels set up now. So
Destroying everything. We now have it where the windshield is the center of the car again. So it's back to the body. It used to be the suspension. We got the windshield basically to the suspension, so now we need to make sure that the hood, windshield, all those things line up. Visually, as you'll know, it'll look a little off like that. So they're making a center point down the car, so we know a straight line, so that way we can get all the way up here with a good centered guaranteed line. But you can't trust any of this work. Not that it's bad work, but it's just like tubes get bent a slight angle and there you go. So we have to go to a center point that we see visually on the car to then make sure that we have the headlights in the right spot now that they've been shifted around a little bit. Check this out. You can see that the guys have lined up everything, but you'll notice something that is not lined up at all, and that's the engine. So you see the line right off of my knuckle right there. And I just want to give you guys kind of an idea of just how off this is. And I already know the answer, but you can see it's almost exactly 2 inches shifted towards the driver. And that ended up creating an even more balanced chassis. Like this whole thing, the whole car exists around that beautiful drivetrain. And because of the front diff and because of the offset on the all-wheel drive system, all of it together is centered. But the engine itself is not centered to my car. So that was the beginning of like, this is back to being an RX-7, no longer just a tube frame chassis.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's actually where we met Chris.
Yeah, that's the current camera guy. While ours is pooping his brains out.
What's tough is that we need to move these over 0.2 inches, but this line is at an angle from the car, so it's not square. What we're gonna do is we have everything set up for the hood. We're gonna set the hood down straight because we have all our straight pieces measured from the suspension, from up here. The hood is center, so the hood's gonna be our centering piece. We're gonna center our headlights to the hood and then our fenders to the hood, and then we'll go from there. Let's see, do my hood stops work? My hood stops do work. Sick. Nice. Perfect.
And you measured this from like these points?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It kind of binds up on this guy over here, but that's The main part is it comes back to the center.
It comes back home. That's nice. So now we can just mount the headlights there. I like that. 27 and a half. So 27 and a half, half of 27 is 13 3/4. And what do we have? I think we have a chicken dinner.
Yeah. 13 and 3/4
So-
within.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
And we're talking about the edges of the welds here.
Yeah.
And it really should, it should err, look, it should err on that side because it's not exactly 27 and a half. Like the weld it starts going
Okay.
over into the weld.
Then yeah, we are literally where that light is.
Yeah. So that is pretty damn accurate.
Found center,
We
yay!
did.
Oh my
We
god.
did. That's sick. That means that the intercooler is square to the car.
She came into the shop straight, and we did what they did, and then 6 years later, we finally got her straight again.
This is centered, so the front air grill will, when you see it like this, the corners will be the edge of the radiator, and it won't be like this. So super exciting to see that that whole front end was done properly.
Yeah, that's when I cared.
Remember how intense this
Yeah.
whole front part was?
That was
intense.
that was really intense. That was the best years of my life. I'll never get back. Let's grab a headlight. My best guess is like that. Go ahead. Damn, we're pretty
Yeah, we're
good.
pretty close.
That is like ideal, like useful gap. We could go smaller, but I don't need to be that obsessive. This is clean to me. I'm obsessed with bodywork in the sense of like the lines and being all the same thickness, at least all around the headlights. There's RX-8s where their hood to front bumper gap is just fucking atrocious, to be honest. I couldn't do that. I couldn't even get out of the garage. Like, I would just not run a bumper because if I would be that embarrassed.
Who's gonna put your bumper on?
Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Look at that. Woo! These are the previous holes for the headlights, right? And we need to go over to this. So that's how far it needs to move over, which is 0.2 inches. And I can't drill that hole and accurately put that headlight in. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna fill these holes up, fill this hole up, and then drill that hole back out. So that way I have a flat surface and it'll be like one solid hole, not an elongated hole, and be perfect positioning, hopefully. Pretty bitchin' or bitchin'?
Pretty bitchin'.
I cannot express enough at how amazing this car looks. When you have a lens do this, very fish-eyed, so look at how big that headlight looks compared to the rest of the car. It'll distort things. So this is kind of closer to human eyesight. So this is looking, but you can't see the whole car, so we have to back up. But what I wanted to point out is how square everything looks. And yeah, because of the line in the front, but that line on that side goes directly down the center of the car. And it just, I don't know, I've been walking past this, go to the bathroom or whatever and look over at it, and everything's just squared up. This way, it just feels good. And so later today, we're going to be taking the car back down to the ground. He's setting up the suspension, and then we get to see it sitting on the ground, and I think we're gonna roll it outside. Well, there's a little bit of a lover's quarrel in here right now. We have some very exciting moments happening right now. We are putting the rear suspension back onto the four-rotor and dropping it down and then rolling it outside to see the car from a distance for the first time in a long time, and to see how the tire tucks in, how it sits at ride height, and the modifications that we're gonna do as we mold those rear fenders fully in. Isaiah's busting ass to make this work. All these cars are all lined up. It's looking pretty tasty. They almost all run. That's the even best part about it, all jokes aside. But finally the four-rotor sees it itself out in the sunlight. We're about to drop it off these wheel chocks and see the rear end as it's properly meant to sit at ride height. there is the first time you get to see the four-rotor with the correct rear fenders on and the front fenders gently set there. This is a first for all of us, but we have all the cars lined up. Almost all of them moved there and they're under their own power. Just enjoy the next couple minutes of beauty and probably some sick polka music. With all the cars out of the shop, this little guy, her bed. Oh my God, look at, there's her spot.
The whole thing's like made of body filler.
So you gotta fill it next and then...
Yeah, I think it's ready. Start getting some filler.
Badass.
That swatch, like if this was like a ribbon, the ribbon goes like that.
Right.
And so, yeah, it just corkscrews that little bit exactly how I wanted it, yeah. And then this just kind of dimples in, and then kind of, it doesn't have to be a dimple all the way through here, but it kind of mentally carries under there. Yeah.
I started getting the rear kind of filled in so you can see the shape of that a bit.
That looks so good. That looks so good. That looks amazing. And it just looks right. We're currently on the last kind of step before primer, and it is very hard, especially for somebody untrained like me, to be able to see the body. Like, okay, you know, hey, is there a flat spot here, or is the curve where I want? Because all the different textures make it hard to tell, you know, what is. Like, for example, right here, on camera, you can barely see the indent that I want to keep carried through here. You just can't see it, but I can feel it. And you can see it on the other side, but once you start doing this sort of work, that sort of stuff kind of disappears. But really the only thing I can actually physically see is just taking down a spot kind of in this area a little bit. Other than that, the shape is just phenomenal. I'm extremely pleased with all of this. This is impressive. Even he took down this edge, A, for all the tire toe in and all that, and B, to make this radius look a little more visually appealing to, you know, anybody that looks at it. Okay, it might be a little cold out, it's rainy, and yet Rich still pulled this off. And I even have like water and oil coming out of my air compressor. Check this out. Look at this, now that you can see it all as one color, look at that cut. Just, Joel's gonna hit you guys with the good music and a little montage of just how sexy all of this really is. As the week rages on, it is finally time to say goodbye to Rich. It hurts my soul to have to do that because he's phenomenal at everything he's done. But we've got the whole rear fenders all done up and molded in, and it's finally basically ready to wrap.